Starting off, guys, with the worst evolution in the game, we got the Evolved Goblin Giant. They absolutely killed this evolution when they gave it a triple nerf a few months ago. It just has not been the same since then, and there's pretty much no point in using this evolution, or the regular Goblin Giant for that matter. Next up, guys, we got the Evolved Goblin Drill. This got a very small buff a couple months ago where it does get an additional Goblin when it submerges, but it has proven to be pretty ineffective, and the regular Goblin Drill is still significantly better than the evolution. And any evolution where the regular card is usually better than the Evo is going to mean that it's a pretty low ranking. That also applies, guys, to the Evolved Bomber, which is really bad as well. The regular Bomber is going to be better than the Evo Bomber. You're going to be better off using the regular version and having two other Evo slots because they removed its double bounce ability, and since then it's been a lot worse. You can't really use it in Drill anymore or Lava. You're just better off using other Evos for sure. The Evo Bats, guys, fell off a ton as well. The main issue is with the minions getting that range buff, you're just way better off running the minions, the minion horde, and there's just so many people running things too, like the Evo Zap, the arrows, and just other spirits, which are going to be pretty good against the bats as well, making them have a very difficult time getting value. The Evo Ice Spirit, guys, fell off a ton ever since they nerfed the Ice Spirit, where it has less of a freeze effect. It's 0.1 second less. That is a double nerf to the Evo Ice Spirit because it freezes twice. So the regular Ice Spirit is better than the evolution. You're way better off running things like the Evo Skeletons in your deck, maybe the Evo Valkyrie, the Evo Knight, just anything but the Evo Ice Spirit the vast majority of the time, making it a very weak evolution. This also applies, guys, to the Evolved Dark Goblin. Ever since they made it so it doesn't have that infinite poison or gas cloud, whatever you want to call it, for like 5 seconds. It's now expired after a second or two. Way worse. And the regular Dark Goblin is actually better to use inside of your bait deck because then you can use the Evo God Barrel, for example, the Evo Valkyrie, the Evo Wall Breakers, whatever, right? Whereas the regular Dark Gob is just almost providing as much value as the evolution in majority of circumstances. Lastly, guys, to close off F tier, we got the Evo Furnace. This fell off a ton ever since they made it move quicker. It's a lot worse. Pretty much the only thing you're going to see it in occasionally now is maybe a bridge spam deck, but you're just going to be better off running a lot of other evolution options now, like maybe the Evo Zap over it or something else. It's just a lot worse for sure. We're going to start off D tier, guys, with the Evo Wizard. It's actually not F tier at the moment. There's a lot of people recently that have been running it inside of Giant decks where it's had a little bit of success. Still not very great, but it is proving to be kind of decent in a couple beatdown decks. Like Giant, you could maybe fit it inside of a Mega Knight deck if you really want to as well. It's pretty niche, but it can be a tiny bit value in some circumstances, but it is still pretty bad in general. Evo Mega Knight, guys, is going to be next. Definitely a really weak evolution. It's actually, in a lot of cases, worse than the regular Mega Knight, especially when you're playing against an Evo Witch, for example, or a Boss Bandit, something where when it knocks it back, it's actually hurting you more than it's helping you. It can be beneficial against things like a Hog Rider, a Golem, things along those lines, but against Cycle decks, Air decks, it's not really doing anything, making it a very inconsistent evolution overall. The Evo Hunter, guys, is also very weak at the moment because even inside of Royal Giant decks, guys, people are preferring other evolutions, whether it's the Evo Ghost and the Evo RG itself over the Evo Hunter. A lot of people are actually running the regular Hunter inside of Royal Giant and not the evolution ever since they removed that perma, net, basically, where it doesn't permanently stun things anymore. And it's been, a lot worse since then. The Evo P.E.K.K.A, guys, is going to be next. I think she's slightly better than the Evo Mega Knight, but there's a lot of people that prefer running the regular P.E.K.K.A over her, and maybe they want to run other Evos in their P.E.K.K.A deck, like the Evo Zap, for example, the Evo Battle Ram, or the Evo Ghost. There's just going to be better evolution options than her, and I think she's very situational. Ever since they nerfed the Chef, I think she became a lot worse because that's where you saw the Evo Gob Giant and the Evo P.E.K.K.A combination be absolutely broken. But now, instead of just P.E.K.K.A bridge spam decks, the Evo P.E.K.K.A is not even really going to be much better than the regular P.E.K.K.A oftentimes. The Recruits, guys, fell off quite a lot ever since they nerfed it, so they need more time to charge. I also think in this meta, there's just a lot of really good tools for countering them, like the Evo Skarmy, for example, the Evo Ghost, the Evo Baby Drag, the Evo Valk. There's a lot of good evolutions to counter them nowadays, so they really just seem to get progressively worse as the meta evolves. The Evolved Barbarians, guys, are also not very great. You might see them occasionally inside of a Lava Hound deck or maybe a Bridge Spam deck, but there's just typically going to be better evolution options than them, and I think overall they are just pretty weak and vulnerable to spells. The Evo Lumberjack, guys, ever since they made this 2 cycles and they nerfed some of the Ghost Lumberjack effects, it definitely has been a lot worse. You might be able to use it inside of a Golem deck or some sort of Bridge Spam deck, but again, there's typically just going to be better evolution options, kind of the same case as the Evolved Barbarians. And lastly, guys, we're going to close out D tier with the Evo E-Drag. This used to be even worse, but recently it's proven to be very good, especially inside of Golem decks and Elixir Golem. It's made a little bit of a return recently, but it's still very niche and pretty much only limited to those 2 decks. And I think against cycle decks, it's going to be pretty useless. It's mostly good against beatdown decks, so I think it's very matchup dependent. Next, guys, we got the Evolved Musketeer. We're going to start off C tier with the Evo Musk. She's amazing inside a Loon Cycle, but the problem is she's mostly limited to that 1 deck. Maybe you could use her inside a Giant Graveyard or an Expo deck, but you also can block her long shot with things like Skeletons and Goblins, making her, I think, a weaker evolution, slightly below average, without a doubt. The Evo Knight, guys, actually fell off quite a ton. This used to be one of the strongest evolutions in the game, but now with the Hero Knight inside of the game, a lot of people are actually preferring to run the Hero Knight over the Knight, making it obviously a worse evolution. And also the Evo Valk happens to be more valuable than him too in a lot of scenarios, so you pretty much only see him inside a Graveyard now, and that's about it. In most other decks, you're oftentimes now seeing, other evolutions or the Hero Knight, so it's kind of, he was replaced. The Evo Cage is going to be decent inside of Recruit decks primarily, and also Electro Giant, but that's going to be about it. Against Cycle, against air decks, it sucks. It doesn't really do anything more than the regular Cage, so it's very dependent on the matchup. But of course, if you're against a Golem deck or a Giant deck, it can be very useful, but I just think it's definitely not a very oppressive evolution, and it is pretty weak in most matchups. The Evo God Barrel, guys, is going to be next. I feel like it fell off a bit ever since they nerfed the Decoy Goblin damage, and there's also just so many small spells right now in the meta, like Log, Arrows, Barb Barrel, and I just think overall Bait is not in the best spot currently, so because of that, I think it's kind of an average-ish evolution, and definitely a lot worse than it used to be. The Evolved Battle Ram, guys, is going to be next. I think in Bridge Spam, it's absolutely phenomenal. I definitely think it's better than the P.E.K.K.A. evolution, for example. Like, P.E.K.K.A. decks commonly use the Evo Battle Ram, but oftentimes they have the regular P.E.K.K.A. in it. You can also use it inside of Bridge Spam decks that don't have the P.E.K.K.A. obviously, like maybe inside with the Evo Lumberjack, or maybe with the Golden Knight, for example. It can be really solid, but there's buildings, there's stuns, and resets, making it definitely very balanced and kind of an average Evo. The Archers, guys, are going to be next. The main drawback for the Archers, they're not versatile. You're mostly only going to see them, of course, inside of Expo decks, so they're just not going to fit in too many things. Giant Graveyard, you can maybe make them work in as well, but they are going to be slightly better after the Evo Cannon nerf, for sure. The Evo Witch, guys, is going to be next. She's a very average evolution. I think in this meta, she's actually somewhat decent because I think she's a fairly good counter to the Hero Mini P.E.K.K.A., which, of course, there's a good amount of people using, so that has kind of made her be an average Evo again, going up a little bit from below average after the nerfs she ended up getting, but you pretty much can only use her inside a Golem, and that's going to be the best deck she's good in now, and I guess Graveyard, but you definitely don't see her as much as before. And we're going to close out C tier, guys, with the Evolved Firecracker. The Evolved Firecracker, guys, in my opinion, is a very average evolution at the moment. She was below average, but now that the Evo Cannon got nerfed and she survives the Evo Cannon, in my opinion, that has kind of made her an average evolution. She's not very versatile, though. You can pretty much only run her inside of Hog decks, so for that reason, she can't really be much higher than C tier, in my opinion. We're going to start off B tier, guys, with the Evolved Inferno Drag. The Evolved Inferno Drag is going to be very good inside of beatdown decks. Of course, inside of Graveyard Freeze, it's going to be very, very solid. That's going to be the main deck you see it in. You could also run it inside of a Lava Hound deck as well. You just typically need to run it inside of a deck where there's a tank for it. I guess even in Mega Knight Bait, it could work as well. There's going to be resets for it, though, and it is very matchup dependent. It tends to not be very good against cycle decks or decks that have a reset. So It really just depends on what you're facing. But against Beatdown, it's going to be absolutely phenomenal. The Evo Valkyrie, guys, is definitely a lot worse after the nerf she ended up getting in the last set of balance changes. A few months ago, they removed the extra health, and now she has a reduced radius to her tornado. And because of that, she definitely took quite a hit. Still an above average evolution in a little bit, by a little bit in my opinion, but now you don't see her nearly as much. You could still use her if you want, though, of course, inside of Lava Hound decks and Hog X NATO, where she's going to shine in, but now you're not seeing her as often in Golem decks and in literally everything anymore, even Graveyard. So definitely a bit worse. The Evo Baby Drag, guys, also kind of similar fate, a bit worse, kind of like the Evo Valk, but by no means is it dead. It's still going to be really solid inside of Golem decks and Graveyard decks. It's just not going to speed up your allies as much, just not making it as oppressive. So now you can't just plop it inside of a Royal Hog cycle deck and just any deck and even a Hog deck to speed up your Hog Rider, the Royal Hogs. You actually have to use it now in a beatdown deck for it to be good, but it's still a very strong card. The Evo Wallbreakers, guys, are actually way more balanced than they used to be. They were one of the most broken evolutions for the longest time, but after finally they ended up getting a nerf basically to their damage or deck damage, both forms, the regular Wallbreakers and the evolution, they've been a lot worse, and they've definitely taken a hit because of that. There's been a lot less minor Wallbreakers and just recruit Wallbreakers in general, and I think the Skeleton Barrel has kind of replaced them in a lot of decks and other evolutions that I'm going to get to. The Evolve Royal Ghost, guys, is going to be next. It definitely took quite a hit in the last set of balance changes where they nerfed basically the ghoul damage, the soldier damage, and I believe the spawn damage as well. Double nerf, and they also gave it a nerf before that, and I think with those nerfs combined, it's finally only a slightly above average card. At this point, I still think it's going to be very good inside of Royal Giant decks and Bridge Spam decks, but now you're not going to be able to just plop it inside of every single deck in the game, like even inside of a minor cycle deck where you're just spamming the ghost, so it's not nearly as overpowered anymore, and I think it's just a lot more manageable to defend. We're going to finish off B tier, guys, with the Evolve Snowball. The Evolve Snowball has seemed to make a little bit of a comeback recently, especially inside of Goblin Drill decks. Goblin Drill Evo Snowball, the start of this season, it's been really good so far. It seems to pair very well with things like the Hero Knight as well, so it seems to have made a little bit of a comeback, and maybe it even ends up being an A tier by the time this season ends, because it's had a really strong start at the beginning of the season. But the regular Snowball is going to be better inside of Loon Cycle, so that's why I think it's not absurdly OP, because the regular Snowball is still very good inside of Loon Cycle and some other decks. We're going to start off A tier, guys, with the Evolve Mortar. It's actually a lot better this meta. I think the Evo Cannon nerf has helped it out a bit. It seemed to have made the other buildings like the Evo Mortar and the Evo Tesla stronger, even though the Evo Cannon is still very strong, because clearly I haven't ranked it yet. As you guys can see, Evo Mortar also pairs very well with things like the Evo Knight and the Evo Musketeer, in my opinion, which has definitely made it a bit better. And that's why at the beginning of the season, so many people have been running the Evolve Mortar already. It's not absurdly broken, though. It's just a solid win condition, I would say, and just has good synergy with a lot of the cards that are good right now. The Evolve Executioner, guys, believe it or not, I still think he's very strong after the nerf he got to the close quarter damage. That nerf didn't impact him as much as the Valkyrie's nerf, for example, or the Evo Baby Drag's nerf, because he still is getting a really good amount of damage, and that knockback is where I think he gets a lot of his value as well, which wasn't touched. It was just his damage, so that knockback still makes him very valuable, which is why you're still constantly seeing him inside of Bridge Spam decks, and also inside of things like Hog X NATO and Graveyard, where he's getting still a really good amount of value, and I still think he's a well above average evolution, even after the nerf, but he's no longer, I would say, top 5 or top 6 because of the nerf. The Evolve Royal Giant, guys, has been very, very good for these last few months. It's been kind of one of the best win conditions. The last few months, it's always been top 3, and even the last couple months, it's kind of been debatably the best. Even though the Evo doesn't seem that broken, that knockback, it really does make a difference, especially when you're against ground decks. And even when you're against air decks, when you're against something like, you know, Lava, and they have things like the Barbarians, you're getting that knockback, which is really solid. And just pretty much any ground unit in the game, like if someone's going in for a Knight, a Mini P.E.K.K.A., which there's so many people running in this meta, having that knockback on it is just so much more impactful than you'd expect, which is why pretty much everyone running the Royal Giant runs the evolution. I mean, that proves how good it is, because you would think they would maybe run things like the Evo Hunter or the Evo Ghost and just run the regular RG, but the ability of the RG proves to be insanely valuable. The Evo Cannon, guys, believe it or not, after the nerf, I still think it is by far one of the better evolutions in the game. I still think it's a top 10 Evo, and still there's so many people running it, because in hog decks, there's still going to be a lot of people that prefer using it over other buildings like the Tesla, for example, and even inside of Logbait, there's still a lot of people running it, and Royal Hog Cycle, it's still a very good building. It's just not going to be a requirement anymore, but it is still very good, even though it doesn't kill the archers and the firecracker. I promise you guys, it is still an above average evolution. I think people had an overreaction. They thought it was going to be dead. That's far from the case. It's just not broken anymore. You're getting so many, you're getting a massive barrage with so many bombs that it's still getting a lot of value in double and triple elixir. The Evo skeletons, though, guys, are really good. They've been really good these last couple months. I don't know what it's been, but inside of cycle decks, there's just been so many people running them. Again, even inside of heavier decks like Royal Giant, you could even run the Evo skeletons in that if you really want to, but especially inside of Royal Hog Cycle, they're very good. Inside of Bait, inside of minor decks, inside of Loon Cycle, I just think they fit in so many decks, making them just a solid evolution and very low risk, only one elixir, and you have multiple opportunities. Oftentimes you can get 3 sets of Evo skeletons down in a match, and if your opponent doesn't have a spell for them, they can just be very, very valuable. The Evo Royal Hogs, guys, we're going to close out A tier with that. They are just really broken, just a solid win condition, the fact that they fly, and that landing damage I think is really what makes them strong. When that landing damage comes in, has the opportunity to take out things like swarms, damage the buildings, and if they reach the tower and land on the tower, then it's just a really crazy amount of damage, and you oftentimes have to overcommit on them. And I just think that when paired with the right cards like an Earthquake, it's just, they're very good inside of Royal Hog Cycle, and we've seen that a lot recently, especially after some nerfs to the Evo Valkyrie, for example, and the Evo Baby Drag. I think that's actually made them even better, which is why they're one of the best evolutions in the game. We're going to start off S tier, guys, with the Evolved Skeleton Barrel. The Evolved Skeleton Barrel, guys, without a doubt, has kind of replaced the Evo Wall Breakers after the Wall Breaker nerf. The Evo Skeleton Barrel also pairs very well with other strong evolutions like the Evo Mortar, which has made a really big comeback recently, as well as the Evolved Skeleton Army, which so many people are playing. The amount of death damage it gets is pretty insane, and that double barrel is really difficult to stop in a lot of scenarios. Even if your opponent has a building, it can still be difficult to deal with it because you can outcycle that building. Or if you're running a bait deck where, let's say, you have the Evo Skeleton Barrel, the Evo Wall Breakers in the same deck, or like the Evo, Scar Me, or other things, you can bait out that building and then go in for the other thing. That is then really annoying, because let's say they use the building on the Skeleton Barrel, then you can go in for your mortar, right? Or you can go in for the Wall Breakers. So it's just really good at baiting things out and forcing your opponent to commit a lot of elixir, and it has just been really good and very versatile recently. The Evo Tesla, guys, is going to be next. I would say it's better than the Evo Cannon at the moment. The Evo Cannon nerf was technically an indirect buff to the Evo Tesla. I definitely think it's better than the Mortar as well. There's been so many people using it recently in hog decks again. Some people have switched to the Tesla instead of the Cannon. You can kind of pick between the two which you want, though. It kind of comes down to personal preference. Same with log bait decks, and also Goblin Drill. Goblin Drill is the biggest one because pretty much all Goblin Drill decks are using the Evo Tesla now for that that extra air support and that stun and reset. It's also a pretty good counter to things like the Evo Skeleton Barrel, which a lot of people are using. It's a pretty decent counter to the Evo Skeleton Army as well because of how big that pulse radius is. So it's just a pretty nice counter to a lot of the other strong cards in the meta, and it's just nice to have a stun and a reset, that pulse damage. It has a lot of kind of features in one card, and it goes underground as well. It's just a very valuable card overall right now. The Evo Scar Me, guys, is going to be next. This is really broken. I think some people still don't realize how broken this is, but I think a lot of people have caught on, especially when it's behind a tank. It really feels unkillable sometimes. It's also very versatile. You can pair it with the Evo Skeleton Barrel, which is very solid. It goes really well with the Evo Mortar as well. It pairs really well with Giant decks. You can use it in Golem decks. You can use it inside of log bait decks with the Evo Barrel and Suspicious Bush spam decks. It's very good in as well. It's just, you can fit it in cycle decks, you can fit it in control decks, you can fit it in beatdown decks. There's so many different things you can fit this card in, and really the only two counters to it that are very good against it are the arrows and the Evo Zap. I guess you could also consider the Earthquake too, but it makes you almost have to run one of those spells in your deck, or otherwise you're screwed against it. And it's been even better because of the Barbarian Barrel nerf. It actually buffed the card even more because the Barbarian Barrel, the deploy time was nerfed, which impacted the effectiveness against the Evo Skarmy. And speaking of one of the best counters to Evo Skarmy, guys, is the Evo Zap. The Evo Zap, in my opinion, guys, and this is according to the usage in the top 200, the Evo Zap is the most used evolution by quite a lot right now inside of the top 200. Whenever I rank the Evo Zap high, or in this case first, there's always some people saying there's no way the Evo Zap is that good. But you guys have to think about how valuable it is, and it's even better now after the Evo Cannon nerf, because now that the Evo Cannon was nerfed, guys, it's no longer able to kill things like the Firecracker and the Evo Archers. But you know what can? The Evo Zap. For only 2 elixir, guys, it can kill the Firecracker, it can kill the Archers, and you know what else it can kill? It can kill the Skeleton Army General for 2 elixir. It's a 2 for 3 trade. It's one of the best counters to the Skeleton Army evolution. And not even only for countering these 3 things that I mentioned, it's a really good reset to things like the Evolved Inferno Drag, for example, and even just Inferno Towers. So if you're running a heavier deck, let's say Lava Hound decks, for example, right? Or if you're running a Giant deck or a P.E.K.K.A deck, the Evo Zap is just really going to be the MVP evolution, which is why you're constantly seeing it in those decks. It's also going to be really good with the Mega Knight, the Goblin Giant, really heavy things. And Bridge Spam too, even with the Ram Rider. A lot of people are using the Evo Zap now over things like the Evo Snowball just because of how valuable it is, and the amount of interactions you can get are just absolutely insane. And combining it too, for example, the Evo Zap with, let's say, a Fireball, you're just getting so much damage combined. So it's not even just on its own, but combined with other spells. It's really solid and very valuable, which is why it's just such a used evolution. If you guys enjoyed the video, be sure to give it a like and subscribe. You can use creator code BOSS to support me in any Supercell game, and let me know in the comments below what you guys would change about my ranking.